Hello and welcome to another episode of It Came From the Page. And yes, apologies, I did have to take a week off. My parents were in town visiting, and as such, I just did not have any time to sit down and record anything. Also, I was planning on doing a few book hauls, but I actually didn't end up picking as many books up as I thought. The store that I used to go to when my parents were down that had the big $5 for a bag of books, it closed. So rest in peace, Rainbow Thrift. And because of that, I did not have nearly the amount of books I thought I was going to have. So there was no haul, there was no nothing. I know, leaving you guys dry during the unholy month of October was mean of me, and I apologize, but hey, I'm back. And I'm back reviewing two anthologies. Now, these are both by friends of mine. Technically, I don't know all of the people who are involved in the second one, but I consider Juan from Plagued by Visions a personal friend, and he has released a collection of short stories called Poking Holes. Now, first off, before we get into this, I just want to say, off the bat, these are extreme horror. Like, this is extreme horror. I would say the first three stories in this collection are the most extreme. There are plenty of other disturbing things in the other stories, but they're not to the depths that those first three stories are. So if you're reading this collection and you're kind of like trepidatious about getting into extreme horror, I'd recommend maybe starting with In a Hot Car, which is the fourth story, and reading some of that and getting used to the style of writing before you dive into those early few stories. If you're a fan of Plagued by Vision's YouTube channel, then you're fine. You're probably already, you want the extreme stuff, so you're right off the bat, you're in there. But I think this is a great collection of short stories, and it really, really is effective at being disturbing. I'm not a person who adores disturbing media. I think my relationship with disturbing media has kind of changed a lot throughout the years. Back in my early 20s, I was like, oh, I'll watch anything. Yes, just stab me. And now I'm a little bit less on that train of mind. But a good book is a good book. So I do end up reading a lot of disturbing literature anyways, especially if it's good. And I just want to say off the bat, a great collection. I was really, really impressed with this. The style of writing, it shifts quite a bit throughout these stories. The perspectives switch through these stories quite a bit. And some of these stories are very sweet. Specifically, my favorite of the collection is The Goose. And that is, in my mind, a very sweet, tragic story. And I just really, really like that story, enough so that I'm like, Juan, you could probably write a romance. I'd read it. I think you got the chops. If you ever decide to stop horrifying everyone. But yeah, so I think that, there is a great variety in this short story collection. And that's something you don't always see in short story collections, especially in someone's first short story collection. And I'm just saying, this is really, really impressive from that regard alone. All of the stories in here I like quite a bit. The only story that I'm a bit mixed on is probably the third story, which is User. I've been kind of grappling with this particular story throughout the last week, and I can't tell if it's so effective that I'm just disturbed by it too much, or I don't like the story. It really is I'd be interested to see what other people think about that story in particular. It might be something that works really well for some people and not for others. Regardless, it stuck with me. So even the story that I'm kind of a little bit mixed on has still stuck with me. And man, it ruined a week. In a good way, though. In a good way. It just... I'd be enjoying something with my parents, and then all of a sudden I would just think of a horrifying thing for one of the stories, and I'd be like, oh my lord, okay. Oh, yep, that's right. That happened. That's a thing that I read. And the first night that it was released and I bought the ebook and started reading it, I had to keep reading because I was like, well, I cannot go to sleep with that story being the last thing that I read and the last thing that was in my brain before I went to bed. I don't want the dreams that come from that. So it was really, really effective in that regard. And yeah, like I said, I really like the Goose. The Goose is my favorite of the stories, but I also like that there are quite a few monster stories in here. And you know me, I quite like the monsters, so I was very happy to see that. Juan even makes his own little animal attack story in here, which again makes me just want to read a full animal attacks book by him. It's calling it an animal attack story is probably being a little bit disingenuous. It's a very complex story, and the animal attacks element is only a part of that, and that's the fourth story in a hot car. And yeah, so I would 100% recommend this to anyone who is even remotely interested in transgressive fiction, I would say, because even though those early three are very disturbing, I would say that probably the entire collection as a whole is probably more transgressive than outright disturbing, as you know, Juan goes into some very adult topics, and one of the things that is really good about this collection is it made me think about the way that we talk about certain topics. So, for example, oh god, Chatty Chump, which is this story about that is about like what happens to children who have like experienced some type of like very serious sexual abuse in their lifetime. And most of the time when we talk about that, we kind of don't want to just say what happened. Like there's like influence, like it's inferred or it's not directly like brought out into the light. And for good reason, because it's like a very disturbing and horrible topic. But this story will directly confront what happened, and it made me kind of think like, yeah, maybe like that we do owe it to people who have gone through this very serious thing to not try to dress up or run away from the actual horrors of their life. So I think that it really did kind of even make me think about how we talk about some of these things in society. So yeah, 100% recommend this entire collection. Again, only minor criticisms is I would change up the formatting a little bit and put those three very disturbing stories maybe in the middle. Give people some some time to acquaint with the writing style and then get into it. And then my only other critique, which is not a critique, this is kind of a minor like, hey, here's a lesson for you all. In the story Growing Love, there's a cat named Jinx. Justice for Jinx. But it's very specifically stated in the story that the house that Jinx is living in also has lilies in it. And here's just your PSA: if you own a cat, do not have lilies in the house. Even a little bit of lily pollen is poisonous to cats and can kill them. I work with a lot of animal rescues, and we've had cats that get adopted out. Somebody doesn't know about the specific harmful things about lilies, the flower, and their cat dies from it. So yeah, it's not even really a plot hole in the story itself, because the entire thing is that too many, like, all these people are like, not dealing with grief properly and like not living. A lot of it is like them kind of trying to get over grief, and it seems realistic to me that people just wouldn't know about that and would have it in the house. And I think it actually goes with the story of like it's something that actually I think would probably like enhance the story, knowing that, because it is a lot of I think it's kind of indicative of the story itself. In a way, and I know it wasn't intentional because but I think it works well in that it's kind of all about the things that we bring in that are supposed to like bring us joy or bring us quote unquote love that can kill us from the inside. And hey, that's what lilies can do to cats when we bring them in. So yeah, coincidentally, bam, 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 that story also appears in the next collection I'm going to be talking about, which is Lurking in the Dark, the latest horror tube anthology. And there were 24 stories in here, and they were all focused on some type of monster. I fucking had a great time. I had a great time reading this collection. There were so many diverse stories in here, and the monsters, man, I love monsters. I am a sucker for monsters, and I absolutely just adored this collection and all of the various monsters that we kind of get to explore in this collection. There are 24 short stories in here, so obviously I'm not going to talk about all of them in this collection. I would just say I don't dislike any of the stories in here. I think they're all quite good and all entertaining. And I would say my favorites were Bad Moon Rising by Amy McCaw. I had heard of Mina and the Undead. I've heard people like talk and haul Mina and the Undead, but I haven't read that book at all. And I was kind of like, I didn't know if I wanted to read that. I just didn't know Amy McCaw that much. But reading this short story and absolutely loving this short story, which is called Bad Moon Rising, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go out and buy that book because I absolutely love that story. And also I really liked Pax Panis's story, which is It's My Job, which is written from the perspective of a dog. It's so well written and made me cry. Like, I was literally tearing up at the end of that. I was like, oh no, it's so sad but good. It's so sad. It's like the meanest short story, but also like really good at, immediately attaching to your heartstrings and just being a great story. I really hope Pax does more writing because she's clearly got a talent for it and is just a great writer overall. And I had a great time with that story so much. I even like little stories. Like, there are some weird stories in here, like Severance Pay I liked, which was by Cam Wolfe, and that's a very weird story where a man in an office building just gets like attacked by these like giant humanoids that just start destroying things, and you're like, whoa, okay, whoa, that's a wild one. Like, okay, that's cool. And I had a great time with that. Now, my absolute favorite story in this collection, and honestly, one of my new favorite short stories in general, is Titanium. Oh my goodness. And that is actually by Alex from the Bookubus. She wrote this story. This was hilarious. This story I had to put down multiple times because I was just laughing too hard at the story. And it is so creative and just, it's a little bit irreverent in the best ways, but also has a great story throughout, and it all works together thematically. And it's just amazing. I will be reading this short story. Like, if I have a bad day, I will be picking up this short story and rereading it because it was exactly my shit. From amazing one-liners. I love that the term wankigator was now in my vocabulary, and I'll be using it quite a bit. To just the central premise is really powerful. This story also, educated me a little bit about mammograms because I, as a man, I had thought it was just like, you go in to get like a nurse and it was like a physical examination in that regard. I didn't realize that mammograms were invented by Marquis de Sade because, oh my god, look at these crazy devices. Oh my god, the clamps. I was like, oh my lord. Oh my goodness. I was looking it up and I was like, damn. I was like, damn. That's how it goes? Oh, yoy, yoy. It is very easy to be a man, let me tell you. Oh, yoy, yoy. So yeah, it was educational alongside being funny, heartfelt, very nice to cats. There's a cat named Mr. Jangles in it. I love that cat. Would die for that cat. And nothing bad happens to that cat. You know how rare that is in a horror short story? If somebody introduces a cat in a horror short story, I'm like, uh-oh. And thankfully, thank you, Alex, for not doing anything to poor Mr. Jangles. Mr. Jangles rocked. And also, like, it's one of those stories that, like, really got cats too, because it was very, very funny where she would talk to the cat and then the cat would just like lick his butt. Like, it was very funny. It was very funny. I had a great time with it. I had a great time with this collection overall. A lot of great stories in it. So I just wanted to kind of shout out those few particular stories for my favorite. But honestly, I didn't think there was a bad story in the bunch. And I was kind of really entertained and was really went through this collection really fast because I was enjoying my experience. So yeah, those are two short story collections that I think you should check out. Neither of which were actually on my quote unquote TBR for this month. I had a whole bunch of other things planned, but I decided right away as soon as they came out, I was like, yeah, you know what, I'm just gonna buy these and read these because why not? And yeah, there's always this fear that when you are friends or you know somebody and you like respect them, it can be scary sometimes picking up their work because you're like, oh no, what if I don't like it? And thankfully, I've not had to confront that reality yet because I absolutely love both of these, and yeah, and I would recommend them to you. I would love to know, have you guys read any of these books? Have you read any other good short story collections that I should check out? Thank you guys, and hope you have a great day. Goodbye.